Hi, Marcus. Thank you for joining us here in the BIC Village. I'm Michaela Barnett, founder and executive director. And here's a man who needs no introduction, but we're still going to introduce him to you anyway, Marcus Hutchins.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Well, it's great to see you. How have you been?
Pretty good, yeah. Weather's not been great, but otherwise pretty good. How about you?
I'm good. Chilling here in BIC HQ. You can see my flag in the back. Definitely here, and we're excited to talk to you and ask you questions. So I think the first thing we want to know, everybody kind of asks you about this. We'd love to hear a fresh perspective about, your court case and everything that led up to it, like, stopping WannaCry and how that was and registering that domain, and also, everything else that went on.
Well, I don't know where to start with that because that's a pretty big thing. Yeah, it was obviously I stopped the WannaCry virus in I think it was like May 2017. A month later, I go to the US for DEF CON, get arrested by the FBI because obviously I had like an arrest warrant I wasn't aware of for some stuff I had done as a teenager. I'd been involved in like writing malware, criminal hacking, and then I ended up in a court case for I think like 2.5 years. During the whole time, I was basically stuck living in the United States, which was quite a strange experience because I'm from the UK. I'd never lived in the US before, so suddenly I'm just like forced to, I guess, be like an honorary US resident. So I spent like a good I think 3 years living in the US until the court case was over and my probation ended, and that kind of like brings us up to today, I guess.
Wow, that's definitely a journey. I know you're probably at DEF CON ready to go home and they just collected you.
I was like so excited to go home. I was like, man, I'm so tired because I think I went for something like 10 days, which if I guess everyone who's watching this will have been to Vegas, 10 days in Vegas is a lot.
Yeah, I would imagine. Well, that's cool. So let's figure out how you got to Vegas anyway, because I know you probably were like, hanging out with your friends or doing whatever. But what was DEF CON like back then? Because I'm sure that was a little bit ago and things have definitely shifted in play.
Yeah, I loved DEF CON back then. Or when I say DEF CON, I think my first DEF CON was 2 years ago. I would just go to Vegas because like everyone was in town and there'd be all these events, but I never actually had gone to the con itself. I spent almost the majority of the time just doing random Vegas stuff and hopping between like the after parties. So I can't really compare like DEF CON then versus now, because I think I've been to like 3 DEF CONs now and they were all like way after the case.
Oh, I see. Okay, well maybe not that, but tell us how like the hacking scene was. Was it a little different than what it is now?
I would say it doesn't feel too different, other than there's like a lot more people interested. Like, it feels like hacking has gone from being this niche kind of skill set to being like very, very mainstream. Like, I could ask my grandma what a DDoS attack is and she would know, whereas like 5 years ago, like no one knew about any of this stuff. And it feels like it's really kind of come into the mainstream. You see like cyber attacks on the news like every day. So it feels like the community has like expanded a lot, and you've got like a lot of like new people like pivoting from other industries, and it's like super exciting.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, that is true. Cool. That's a really cool perspective. So I know you've been making some content here on TikTok or Instagram Reels, and I know that started some intro to cyber topics. So is there anything that you particularly like introducing people to?
I quite like the physical stuff because it's super fun to watch, like stuff like lock picking, bypassing electronic access control, that kind of stuff. Because not only is like the theory behind it really cool, but you can also see it happening. Like you can see the lock unlocking, you can see the door opening. So it has like a lot of the fun of like the purely digital hacking, but you can actually like physically see the results happening in real time, which I think I find it really cool, and a lot of like, especially people who are like looking to get into tech, find it like very, very interesting.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's great. Well, I guess we'll start and push it all the way back and talk a little bit about how you grew up in the game and how you learned about malware reverse engineering. So do you want to tell us how you like even found out about it, and even what school and like the culture was like in the UK?
So I definitely didn't find out about it from school. I don't really, I don't know how school is generally in the UK, but I grew up in like kind of a rough area. So it
Mhm.
was a lot of like fighting and arguments versus actual learning. Um, I think kind of what started to get me interested in tech is a lot of the school IT lessons are focused towards stuff that everyone already knows. Stuff like using Microsoft Word, making PowerPoint presentations, that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
for a lot of the lessons, I was very bored. Like I wanted to do other things. And the one thing that everyone wanted to do was play games. But our
Mhm.
school had like both a software restriction policy and a firewall, which prevented you either downloading games or going to like web-based games. So there was always that challenge of like, how do I get to the games?
Oh, that's cool. I bet that was interesting. Oh man. So I guess you were in school fighting. Maybe.
Personally, no fighting here. Just it was like it felt like there wasn't a huge amount of learning went on. Like I don't remember really learning much useful stuff from school.
Mhm. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that's cool. So, do you remember the first time you learned how to code and what that was like?
Um, I can't think of the exact first time. I know there was like, I think one of my first introductions to like coding in general was through, I want to say like VB6 maybe, or VB, like the old Visual Basic, like way before .NET. You could basically, you could write macros in them in like Word documents. So the thing to do when you have like a software restriction policy, which is preventing you from running certain executables, is what you could do is you could load up Word and then you could write your VB6 macros within Word, and that would allow you to get some kind of like basic programming interface regardless of the software restriction. So then you could like basically just sideload applications and get them working from like within Microsoft Word.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I don't know if that was like before my programming time, but back when I was learning in high school, I think we started in Java and Python. But I learned about Visual Basic a little bit, but not enough to like work with it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I don't think it was even like a very commonly used language when it was like its time. Like VB.NET, I think is still quite a niche language. Most people use C Sharp, but I think VB6 was one of those languages that there was basically just no reason to learn it other than macros.
Okay. Oh, okay. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah. So I guess going on from there, how did you get, into malware development? And I guess how did you meet Vinny? I know I don't want to make that a sensitive topic, but
So how I got into malware development, I'm trying to remember because like there was a
um,
lot of like there was like a lot of different hacking communities. I think like the MSN hacking community was my main entry
mhm,
because there was like all of these things for like there was all these cool things you could do via MSN, which wasn't allowed with like the base setup. So there were all these like little add-ons and hacks you can do. So I ended up on I think like the MSN hacking community, and like a
mhm.
lot of the people there aren't just hacking MSN. They're doing stuff like botnets, phishing, keyloggers, you name it. So like in kind of mixing with that community, I ended up getting kind of pulled over to the dark side, I guess.
Well, I don't know if you want to answer one of our crowd questions, just to break
Sure.
it up, because I know I've been asking questions, but we'll get back to that. So yeah, so let's actually ask one that I think is like a burning question, especially since we can see your background today. We definitely see all the cool stuff in it. So let me see. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Kristen Madison, member of the 2024 mentorship cohort. And my question for you is, what type of battle station do you have? Battle station meaning, do you have a laptop and or a workstation with a Hyper-V installed, or do you use a client server environment? Thank you.
Um, so I guess technically the answer is all of the above. I think you can see, what can you see? I think you can see my editing computer here, and then that's my gaming computer on the right side. Those are, uh, th those are like my kind of medium use computers, I want to say. Like I don't game a huge amount, but I kind of just have it just in case. Then my actual like work computer is in another room. This is for sure going to disappoint a lot of people, but they do all run Windows. I think there's you can't really see it, but there's a third computer off screen here, which is it runs the camera setup I'm using right now, well, camera and audio. And then I also have a virtual server in another room, and I think there's like a pile of laptops somewhere, like in case I travel. I have like a Mac, two different MacBooks, a Windows computer and a Linux one, just for like demos and stuff. But my daily driver is Windows.
Well, I don't know. As a pro Linux person, okay, I guess I can understand. So, are you beefing with Linux, or is it just not your thing?
It's just not my thing. Like, so much of what I do is like Windows focused. Like I specialize in Windows malware. So even if I were to run a Linux system, it would just be running a VM with Windows. So it's like I may as well like use the system that I need to use, and also like a lot of the understanding you need to do malware analysis comes from like having a strong familiarity with the Windows environment. So you've got to like spend a lot of time like learning the APIs, learning how like the security controls work, which is kind of obviously easiest to do on Windows. So it really would be a case of, sure, I could have a Linux system, but it would just be running a Windows VM like 99% of the time. And then the rest of the time I'm gaming. So again, we'd be running a Windows VM. So it would just be Windows.
That's understandable. Okay, well, I guess that goes into our next question. This is just our community question. Let me see. Yeah, from Serenity. What tools do you use on a daily basis? So what do you like to use other than Windows for your daily driver? But what other tools do you use, and what would you use for, malware reverse engineering?
So primarily anything virtualization based, I mostly use VMware. Reversing, mostly IDA, because I like the programming interface. I do like just pure hex editors sometimes. I use like I can't pronounce it, HXD, which is just basically like a raw binary editor. I like my Python scripting, and I'm trying to think. There's another tool I use a lot, but it's an internal tool from my old company that hasn't been released yet, so I'm actually not sure what the name is going to be. But it's kind of like a programmable hypervisor for malware analysis.
Okay. Well, speaking of old companies, how did you come to work, at the company that you started at? And how was your career matriculation?
Like, how did I get my first job?
Yeah.
So they reached out to me. At the time I was a blogger, and I would basically just reverse engineer malware for fun, because who doesn't do that in their free time? So my entire thing would be I would just find some malware to reverse, and then I'd write like a blog post like deconstructing it bit by bit. And I think at the time I was looking at Kellyhost, which was this peer-to-peer botnet that got taken down forever ago. I think it's maybe like 15 years old. But I was reverse engineering the protocol because I wanted to make a system that would like crawl the network, because like the thing with obviously peer-to-peer networks is you can see all of the peers. So in the case of Kellyhost, that was infected hosts, and I wanted to be like, oh, I want to map out like all of the infected hosts on this botnet. So I built like a system to do that, and I was like documenting it on my blog, and the company wanted to do that commercially. So they reached out to me via my blog email and were like, hey, would you like to come and work for us and like bring your Kellyhost tracking system?
Oh, wow. Wow, that's great. Well, that's cool. Let me see if I can go to another question. Yeah, I guess this one's from our UK ambassador, so we'll go ahead and go ahead. Let's see.
Hello, Marcus. My name is Ike Marizu. I'm the UK ambassador for Blacks in Cybersecurity. My question is, what are the key indicators of sophisticated malware attack, and how do you differentiate them from common threat?
Okay, so I guess his question.
I think I missed the last part. The how do you differentiate them from what was the part after?
Key indicators of malware and common trends. So,
Oh.
yeah.
So the thing with like sophisticated malware is it's usually actually, if we're like, it depends what we're talking about with sophisticated, because like a lot of people, their idea of sophisticated is nation state versus like criminal malware, whereas you can also have like basic criminal malware and sophisticated criminal malware. So I guess I'm going to address both. The differentiating between like the sophisticated and unsophisticated kind of malware in within the same realm, like say criminal, is like usually detectability is like quite a common one, because a lot of the time the more sophisticated malware has like automated like re-encryption. So they will, the second the sample gets detected, it'll automatically issue a new one, which is like freshly cleaned. So if you notice, you see like high payload churn and you keep getting fresh payloads that aren't detected by an antivirus, you're definitely dealing with like a more sophisticated set. But for the most part, like a lot of the malware just spreads the same. It's like macro emails, it's like spear phishing. The only other thing I would think is kind of like the components it has, because a lot of malware is, it will firstly be like a loader, then it will start loading like modules. Like there might be a spreader module, there might be like a password grabber module, and if you kind of see that like very modular kind of I guess like mode of operation, it's usually one of the more sophisticated malwares, because you get a lot of the beginner stuff is just like pack everything into a single executable and shove it like wherever. Then with the like criminal versus like nation state, a lot of the time it's actually the more simple of the two. Like your high-end criminal malware is actually going to be a lot more sophisticated than a lot of the stuff nation states are using, and in many cases they would actually use low-end criminal malware on purpose to kind of like hide their intentions, because a lot of people, like, we've been hacked by the Russian government versus, oh, it's just some stealer from like some kid on hack forums. So a lot of the time you will actually find they use like very off-the-shelf tools. It can be sophisticated, it can be unsophisticated. You'll see like a lot of Cobalt Strike, and the only real way to differentiate between like the kind of like the unsophisticated and sophisticated stuff is really what they do once they get on the system. Like, do they bash around not really knowing what they're doing, or do they very quickly start like profiling and looking for like specific assets?
Okay. I guess that goes right into our next question, which would be, what exactly is like the thought process you go through when you're in an incident or when you see a piece of malware, and like how do you kind of go about deducting and figuring out where it came from, where it's going?
So like I rarely do attribution. Like my core role is to figure out how to monitor malware. So in a lot of cases, like, we don't really care where it came from. We don't care who made it. We don't care like what country of origin. It's just like every malware is a piece of malware. So it kind of, I can do it two ways. Like if I have the time, I will actually just sit and go through the code, like reverse it bit by bit until I'm done. Or in the more like if we're strapped for time, I might throw it in a sandbox to try and get like a better idea of what is it looking at, like what registry keys is it touching, what files is it opening or creating, and that way you can get kind of a more basic understanding of like what it's doing and where in the code you want to be looking, versus just going through the code like line by line, bit by bit.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I don't know. I want to give you a break from just answering questions. We'll come back to those. So yeah, so I guess another thing for me would be like, so say you have a piece of malware, you aren't necessarily concerned about anything about where it's coming from, where it's going, but you've I guess laid it all out. So how exactly do you go about like reporting? Like, is there like a way to report it, or is there a way to communicate this to either people who have been affected or people who are interested in learning more about it?
Like, how do I do it, or how would I go about doing that?
Oh.
Like, in most cases, I don't report. We have like an automated system that people can sign up for, and then if we identify a victim, it automatically goes into the system. But with regards to like, if you're just someone who's found some malware, you've reverse engineered it, you've figured out some victims, it really kind of ends up just cold calling people and trying to convince them you're not some kind of scammer.
I'm sure that has its ups and downs, right? Like, hey, I'm trying to warn you, and they probably
and they're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess we'll come back to some technical things, but sure, I'll ask you about, I guess, how you are, like what's going on. So I know that you're a surfer, so you surf on the internet, you surf on the seas. How's that going?
Yeah, so the surf has been really bad in LA, which it's kind of standard. Once the weather starts getting warmer, you don't have like as much wind and as much storms. So like right now, I'm super bored. Like I want to get in the sea, but there's just no waves, and I'm at the point where I'm like, do I just fly somewhere else to surf? Because like I'm at the point where I'm like, I need to get in the water. Like I need to do some surfing.
Okay. I'm sure that definitely, we love a surf, but I'm sure that's definitely kind of a roadblock because it's what you like to do. So how did you get into surfing?
I actually don't really know. I think my parents like kind of signed me up for classes when I was younger. And then it's a very addictive sport. Like once you get over that learning curve of like actually being able to stand on the board, because that takes a while. Like for some people, it can take like as much as a week just to actually be able to stand on the board without falling off. But once you actually get to that level, it's so addictive. It is like one of the most addictive sports I've ever done.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, okay. Anywhere in the world you want to go specifically to surf?
I'd like to try Bali, maybe. Honestly, like a lot of Southeast Asia looks like it would be pretty good surfing wise. I've surfed like most of the US, maybe like Portugal or somewhere like that.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's interesting. So I guess speaking of other areas, do you ever go back to Jamaica?
No, so I've actually never been.
Oh,
I've been meaning to go, but I kind of got stuck in the US for a long time during the court
right.
case. But like now that I'm free to go, it's pretty high on my list. It's gonna be like one of the first countries I visit.
Oh, okay. That's neat. Let me see. Definitely want to get back to our technical questions, but of course have to sprinkle in some interpersonals. Um, cool. So let me get back to these. So yeah, let's hear from Tito Santana. So his question is, how can some malware detect that it's inside a virtual machine and then attempt to escape?
So personally, I've never ever seen malware attempt to escape a VM. Usually, if you're in a VM, well, there is a caveat. I'll discuss it later. But typically, if you're in a VM, it's because like a researcher has found your malware and they're now tearing it apart. Which means like if you then try to escape the VM onto the host, that's going to require most likely a zero-day exploit. And you're now deploying a zero-day exploit on the system of someone you know is a security researcher and is most definitely going to report it. So in most cases, in fact, all cases I've personally seen, there is malware that will detect a VM, but it will just cease to run. Like it'll either crash or exit, and that'll be it. It won't try to escape the VM. The one case where I could see that happening is with like a thin client. Like some organizations, they have like, everything they do is in a VM. And if you want to get onto the actual true network, you would have to escape the VM. But in a case like that, it would be more of a hands-on keyboard attack rather than like malware automatically trying to escape the VM. And in terms of like how the detection is actually done, there's like surprisingly like a lot of ways you can detect VMs, and some of them are so subtle. Like for instance, when was the last time you set up like a realistic looking like file system on a VM? Like, do you have desktop icons? Is there any photos in your pictures folder? How big is the hard drive? Like, if your hard drive is 20 or 60 gigabyte, which is the standard that researchers will deploy for a VM, that's not a real system. Like, no one has hard disks less than like 250 gigabyte in the modern era. Like, how many CPU cores do you have? How much RAM is applied? How does the mouse move? Does it just sit there for days on end and then just go whoop, whoop, whoop? Then there's even, there's often like things exposed through the VM that allow them to detect it. Like it could be, like VMware actually has like a special like CPU interface where you can execute certain instructions to communicate between like the VM and the host, and you can actually trigger those CPU instructions, and based on how the CPU responds, you can know if you're within like a VMware VM or if you're on like a real system. And then there's also things like timing attacks, because when you're inside a VM, everything is going to take slightly longer than on a bare metal system, because it's basically being translated through this hypervisor layer. So there's a lot of things you can do where you can just run an operation and time how long it takes, and how long it will take, how long certain operations will take within a VM is significantly longer than even the slowest like real computer.
Okay, sorry about that. Trying to figure out what's going on with my camera. It's just randomly has a rainbow on it.
Like rainbows for a second.
Right? So while we fix that, how many cups of tea a day do you drink? And what's your favorite?
Currently 0. I became like a coffee addict since moving to the US. I don't know why, but for some reason the same tea that I drink in England tastes different here. I think it's like the amount of chlorine or whatever that they put in the water, but tea just doesn't taste good. I can't say all of America, but at least in LA, it just doesn't taste good. So when I do drink tea, it's got to be either Earl Grey or English breakfast.
Of course. So as we're seeing our rainbow again, let me just go to a video question.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcellus Williams. I'm with the BIC Red Team Development Program. And my question for you as a malware researcher is, what are some innovative or creative malware behaviors that you witnessed in your research?
Oh, I have to think about this for a second, because I know I've seen one, but there's like nothing on the top of my head. I do want to say like one of the common ones that I think is like kind of innovative is the systems where it will automatically submit the malware payload to something like VirusTotal, but not VirusTotal, that just like scans it with every antivirus. And then if it's detected by an antivirus, it'll call back to some kind of system that will actually rebuild the sample, usually by using some kind of code mutation and padding, and then maybe throw like some different resource files in there, and it will actually just distribute that to the systems as an update. So like you have all these people like reporting the samples to like the antivirus vendors, the antivirus vendor adds a detection, and then within seconds like a new sample comes out. But that's actually like, it's probably the norm now, but when I first saw that, I was like, that is really clever.
Oh wow, that is pretty cool. So let's hear from Darius Robinson.
Darius Robinson here from Birmingham, Alabama. And considering how the XZ backdoor was discovered seemingly by coincidence, what advanced techniques and methodologies can we use to proactively find these new sophisticated threats as opposed to relying on accidental discovery?
So I think that's a really tricky one, because ultimately there's not going to be, like, every attack is going to be different. Like, I think it's more of like a human issue than here's some kind of system we can build. It's like, do we want to vet every new coder? Like, because like a lot of that attack specifically came down to the developer was just overwhelmed, and he let a new coder into the project that he shouldn't have. And I can't really think of any technical solution. I think it really is just a case of, hey, let's track every single person who is like contributing to like either big software projects or software projects that go into big projects, and actually make sure they're like doing what they should be. But other than that, like I think it's just purely the nature of open source. Like the whole point of the system is that anyone can contribute. And ultimately, in a lot of cases, there's like obviously malicious contributions that someone's going to catch, but there is like the ability to just introduce vulnerabilities that are like very subtle and might get past like code review. So it's like, I think it's really just like the fundamental like nature of just having a code base that anyone can contribute to.
Not turn my view. So anyway, I guess we'll go on with Ron Stephenson, who also has a follow-up question to that. So let's see, Ron.
Ron Stevenson of Blacks in Cybersecurity. First question. Could you explain the current trends in malware development and the most common techniques that modern malware authors use to evade detection by security systems?
Okay.
So the two most common techniques are the one I explained earlier with like automatically rebuilding the sample whenever it's detected, but also to kind of avoid other security systems, they usually will run a legitimate process and then copy their code inside that process, so they're not having to deal with like certain kinds of like what do you call it, like application, I forget what the name is, but basically the systems that kind of restrict like what applications can and can't be run on the system, they will often take an application that would usually be allowed, like say SVC host or Word, and they'll actually inject their code into that. And then on top of that, quite a lot of stuff will work on like web URL trust or IP trust. And once an IP address is like known malicious, or like a web address is known malicious, it goes into a database somewhere, and then a lot of firewalls will be like, oh, this code is connecting to a known malicious IP, let's shut it down. So a lot of what they'll do now is they will like either buy or hack websites or other desktop systems and then route their communications through those systems. So instead of like having, here's our malware server and our malware web address, which is now detected by an antivirus, you never actually see that server. It's always being routed through someone's like hacked WordPress blog. And since there's just such an endless supply of hacked websites or hackable websites, they can just keep routing their communications through like new IP addresses like every day or every minute if they need to.
So I guess what's next? Like, I know that you've obviously had a lot of malware experience. I know you might be looking for a new gig. So what's going on? What's next?
Honestly, I don't know. I recently quit my last job, but I'm at this point where I'm like, not really sure that I want to work another like day job. So I'm kind of I've just been sat around for like a month or two now, just thinking, do I start my own company? Do I do consulting? Do I go back to just doing social media full time? Like, I don't know exactly what I want to do. I know what I don't want to do, which is go and jump into like another job right away.
I see. Makes sense. So are you going to make that movie about your life, or do you think you're just not going to have that?
I really don't want like a movie about my life. I just think that would just be weird, but I don't know, who knows.
Okay, well, I guess we got to the portion where we now look through and just review some of the things you put out there. So I hope you don't mind. But we've gone through your IG a little bit, and we definitely want to hear the backstory of some of these photos.
Oh no.
Oh man, it's great. Let me see. Let me take down that caption real quick. So tell us the backstory of this.
So I believe that was a Christmas party in one of Ronald Reagan's old houses. Um, uh, I can't remember how the outfits came about. I think it was some friend just bought us all matching outfits as a joke. So we ended up doing like a comedy photo shoot where we're all wearing matching outfits. And I think that was the best of the collection. It's just us sat in these very like old-fashioned, like old American chairs in this kind of very like, I guess, antique living room.
That sounds creepy. So are you into fashion? Do you like to dress?
No, I have no dress sense whatsoever. I typically rely on my friends to tell me like, or to give me suggestions on what to wear.
Nice. So are you into shoes at all? I guess not.
Nah, I don't really. Well, I have shoes I like, but I'm not really like a collector, or I don't like go looking for like different kinds of shoes. I'm just like, this is my brand, this is my style, and I just buy the same like style of shoes forever until I die.
Okay. That's it's not for everybody, right? So let's see. What else do I have in here? I'm sure this was an interesting backstory. So let me see.
Oh yeah.
How do we end up?
I fell off my surfboard in a weird way, so much that it came back up the wave and it like hit me square in the face, like right here. And I basically spent like most of the night in the I forget what the American version is called.
ER.
ER. Yeah, so I spent like most of the night in the ER because I managed to somehow hit myself in the face with my own surfboard.
Oh man, that's definitely a story. So if you're not a fashion guy, are you into music?
Yeah, like I don't have any musical talent myself, but I enjoy listening to other people's music. I'm a big fan of like electronic stuff, like a bit of rock. And like I also have my niche. Well, not niche. They're not niche artists, but it's like niche for me. It's like because it doesn't really fit with the rest of my music taste. But I have like my like Lorde and my Lana Del Rey and the occasional Taylor Swift.
Okay, so you're a Swiftie. Love to see.
I wouldn't go that far. Like I'm a fan, but I don't know. Who knows?
That's okay. Okay, that's your music choice. So I don't know if you're aware of a particular rap beef going on, but I don't know if you're pro Drake or pro Kendrick.
I'd have to say Kendrick.
Exactly, and that's the first flag, okay, of our CTF. So when you log into our OSINT portion, you can go to you can enter big CTF. They not like us. Thank you. We love to see Kendrick. Okay, so do you have a favorite Kendrick song other than They Not Like Us?
Honestly, no. Like that isn't typically like my music taste. Like neither Drake nor Kendrick. But I have been watching like endless TikTok videos breaking down the rap beef.
Mm-hmm. So you're a little bit into the hip hop scene. Not a little bit. Well, not a lot, but just a little bit. So I know you didn't tell us a lot about UK and you know what it was like growing up there. But is there any particular memory of being there that sticks out to you?
Honestly, no. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like anything significant I remember, but like, cause the UK was like, I was born and I grew up in the UK, so I didn't really have anything to like contrast it with until now. So it's more like a lot of things in America like stick out because I'm like, it was this way when I grew up and now things are done this way, but the other way I don't, because all I remember for like all of my life is just everything seeming normal because that's all I was used to.
I see. So did you have any of your Caribbean influence in the house, or was it all just kind of British?
I don't even want to say like, so my mum is like Scottish, so it's technically part of Britain, but a lot of Scots don't really identify with being British, which I think is fair because the UK is not that great. But my mum did all the cooking, so like most of the food was like British or Scottish. Whereas my dad did introduce me to some of the Caribbean food. I think he brought I can't remember what it was called, but it was like I think it was like a Jamaican jerk chicken. He brought that home one day. Unfortunately, I inherited the white not being able to deal with spice at all. So while I would have loved to have enjoyed it, my entire face was on fire.
Oh man. Okay. All right. I guess we didn't see a lot of that growing up. I was going to ask about music and dancing and everything, but I guess we weren't exposed to that yet. But hopefully you get to soon. Let's see what else is in here. Let me see. Actually, let's find out how you got in the bathtub, right? So
I honestly just did that for for a TikTok skit. I was like, I'm doing laundry anyway, so why not just get in the bath with my clothes on, just for, you gotta commit to the bit sometimes. And that was one of those videos where I'm like, yep, I'm just gonna get in the shower with my entire outfit on and then record myself.
You're right. Sometimes you have to commit, right? So that is cool. So speaking of being in the shower, I guess, as long as that doesn't come off weird. Anyhow, so what's our hair care routine? Are you pro bonnet, silk pillowcase?
I'm like at a loss. Like, I think I inherited like enough of the white genetics that none of the normal hair care stuff seems to work on me. Like I have like a what do you call it? I'm trying to think of the American word. Like the person who does like hair professionally. But I have a friend who like works with like black, like very curly hair. So I asked her like, hey, what should someone with my hair type use? And she gave me like all these great recommendations for like black hair care products. And then I use them in my hair and it just completely ruins it. And then I have the unfortunate side of the white products don't work either. So I'm just like kind of at a loss where like nothing works.
No. Okay. I have a few suggestions, but we'll talk about that. You always got to keep your hair together.
I'm always open to hear, because like wrestling with my hair in the morning is not a fun time.
For sure. So let's get to the next one. Let me see. Yes. So fun fact, I actually bought one of these when I saw it because it looked so comfy. But tell us about this.
Yeah, I think I saw it on TikTok maybe or Instagram. Someone was like, you can buy wearable blankets, and like before they'd even finished the video, I was on Amazon like buy. But the problem is like it's too hot in LA to ever like reliably use it. Like even in the winter, I would have to put my AC on full. So like unfortunately, I can never use it because it's just way too warm.
Oh man, well it looks so comfy. So that's cool.
It is super comfy.
Yeah. So let me see. I think I have one more. Let me see. So yeah, were you rollerblading?
Yeah, I was. I think I was rollerblading in my apartment because I had hardwood floors. So I was like, I don't remember why. I just was like, I feel like I could probably rollerblade in here. Like it was a big open space. So I just basically decided to rollerblade in my apartment.
So you do something other than surfing, and then surfing again. You rollerblade.
So I do like a lot of other sports, but like surfing is my bread and butter. Like I've tried pretty much like every sport you can think of, but the only one that really, really stuck for me was surfing.
Oh, okay. Let me see. I think that's everything as far as my little archives can go. But I do know you do be tweeting, and you do kind of fry up the American system a little bit. So I'm sure that contrast is different from what you know, and then coming here, going through our legal system, and watching things unfold. So yeah. So, go ahead.
I know. I was just gonna say absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there a question?
Oh, I was just going to say, what do you think so far after having gone through the legal system? And, what are some things you definitely see in contrast, if you will?
Yeah, so the legal system's kind of a weird one because it doesn't work the way you would think it was. Like you would think someone gets arrested and if they're guilty and they're a bad person, they go to jail. And like maybe if they're a good person, they get less jail time or no jail time. And it's kind of based on like the morality of like how bad was what you did or how bad of a person were you. But in a lot of cases with the US system, because it's based on I want to say it's based on the plea deal structure, but I don't know of anywhere else that has that. So I think that is just purely an American concept. But basically what they can do is they can say, hey, we know you're guilty and we know you did like these terrible, terrible things, but we want that person. So you give us that person and we will let you go. So a lot of the system is really based around like prosecutors chasing like the bigger fish versus actually like trying to serve justice.
It's definitely an interesting thing. I guess I've got the end of my crowd questions and then the end of my Instagram archives. So is there anything in particular you want to talk about?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. My brain is just super blank right now, but if you want to throw some stuff out there.
Let me see. I'm trying to think about some of the tweets or Instagrams I've seen recently. Well, are you excited about what's to come? Is there anything you'd like to see change in the industry?
Honestly, I kind of want to like relocate. Like I want to, I guess, explore some more of like, not just travel, but like actually live in like yet another country.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's a whole world. You definitely want to see it. So that makes sense. Well, I think that's the end of our time here today. Thank you for joining us and our questions and our queries. And yeah, I just hope that everything goes well, and we hope that we see you again here.
Thanks so much.